the challenges are universal, right? It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter who your father was. It doesn't matter what culture or time period you come from. We all share these similarities. And that's the beautiful thing where, as you talked about, your work is my work comes in. To give everyone just a little context, like first we have to identify and look in the mirror of like, where are things in my life not up to par? Where are those shadows expressing themselves? We always talk about as a behavior, right? That's the first identifier. And then through that process and going further into that quote unquote wound is to see like, okay, where did I take that on? And for most of us, especially as men, I mean, we look back to our male fathers, grandfathers, and as we said many times, it's like it's not even your stuff, it's not even their stuff. Looking at it and just being with what is the salve. You don't have to know more than that going in. All right, here we are. Welcome back to the Ignite the King podcast. Michael Diamond here with G. Russell Reynolds. Welcome.
Thank you, brother. Welcome to all the listeners. Thanks for sticking with us. We got some good stuff for you today.
Yeah, we are come fresh off our immersion, and we wanted to debrief and bring some of that wisdom to you men and to just really reflect. Actually, that's one of the things we talked about a lot is how often we forget as men to reflect on big life events and quickly be on to the next thing. So we want to take that time with you guys today and share some wisdom, some transformations that happened. I mean, it was extraordinary on so many levels. I think the hardest part, Russell, is going to be keeping this to about 40, 45 minutes.
Yeah, right. Lives were changed. Families were changed. Lineages were changed. Like literally affecting the lineage of these men. Incredible work was done.
So much. I mean, we did an episode leading up to the immersion, what the immersion is about, what we were, the expectations and the men and what they're going to be stepping into. And now we're being on the other side of it. It's like, and it has proven to be the case every time. It was like all that and so much more.
Beyond our wildest expectations.
Right. I think I used at the immersion. It really defies logic. Because obviously it's beyond the mind. This is soul work. But it really defies logic of what can typically happen in a weekend for a man's life, and the perspective and paradigm changes that occur, and men coming in thinking they're broken, thinking they're alone, thinking that they're the only ones, not even knowing where to turn, what to do, or how to do it, and leaving feeling empowered, embodied, on fire, clear, focused with literal statements of what their vision is, and healing, as you said, lineages and father wound, and these, just the power in all of it was off the charts. Energy super rich, as we would say.
Yeah. And amazing. We say often in the Brotherhood, your work is my work, which is one, if you touch the orange burner and burn yourself, I don't have to repeat it because I saw what happened to you. So we can benefit from each other's pain. Two, right. It's the similarities are phenomenal in all of our works. It's like, yeah, me too. Right. We've all got
in a really diverse group, right?
I mean, super very diverse. Yeah. And that father wound from men like myself, whose father was gone. My dad left when I was 3 years old, to men whose father was present and even still alive.
Right.
The wounds,
myself included.
Yeah, the wounds are the same. Like everybody's got them. And I want to be really clear that we're not blaming our dads. We're not victims, right? We're not just whimpering about, oh, my childhood wasn't this and that. But there's some real fucking emotional wounds that most of us have suffered in one way or another. So we want to heal the relationship with our father, whether they're alive or dead. And the way to do that is to address those wounds. You have to clean the infection out before you can actually, allow healing to take place.
Exactly. And just to, kind of expand out for a moment, give a little context to the men, how we identify this. You don't just go in and say, okay, my father, and start feeling all these things. It's important as a man in any kind of men's work, and just back up even further for a second, talking about how diverse our group is, but yet the challenges are universal, right? It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter who your father was. It doesn't matter what culture or time period you come from. We all share these similarities. And that's the beautiful thing where, as you talked about, your work is my work comes in.
Yeah.
So to give everyone just a little context, like first we have to identify and look in the mirror of like, where are things in my life not up to par? Where are those shadows expressing themselves? We always talk about as a behavior, right? That's the first identifier. And then through that process and going further into that quote unquote wound is to see like, okay, where did I take that on? And for most of us, especially as men, I mean, we look back to our male, fathers, grandfathers, and, as we said many times, it's like, it's not even your stuff. It's not even their stuff. And looking at it and just being with what is the salve.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't have to know more than that going in. Yeah. But yet what comes out of that, I mean, the gold that was mined was off the charts.
And what a crazy concept that is, since you mentioned that generational, I think you almost want to say generational curse, but through the epigenetic chain, some of the emotional baggage that you're carrying, some of the dysfunction that you're carrying isn't even yours, because they've now shown scientifically, from what I understand, this is not my field, but it goes 7 generations back. So your great, 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 great grandfather may have been beaten as a child by his parents who told him he was a worthless piece of shit. And guess what? You're still carrying that baggage. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a lot about that at the Immersion and, the children of Holocaust survivors and how trauma that people didn't even experience is now showing up in their genetic code. You said epigenetic, which means above the gene, which is literally like a chemical marker on top of the DNA that didn't exist before that trauma happened and then gets passed down to the children until someone decides to be the chain breaker. And as we say, it ran in my family till it ran into me. And the level of that we saw this last weekend was, I can't keep saying off the charts.
You got to come up with something new.
It was humbling.
Yeah.
It was very humbling. And a further reminder of how, quote unquote, and I don't like to think so linearly in time, healing the past heals the future. If we want to think of it that way.
Right.
And it matters. It really matters. Yeah. Like you said, families saved, like literal families saved, and new ones literally being born.
Yeah.
As a result.
I'm still tripping on the epigenetic thing, the 7 generations back. It's like, my ancestors were probably Viking raiders that raped and pillaged and answered every dispute with an axe. And so I may tend to be a tyrant and my dealings with my loved ones or relationships. So it's like, we also talk about, look, what happened to you as a child and what may have been handed down to you generationally is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Oh.
So you can recognize what's not working in your life. You can recognize where your personality flaws are, where like, shit, the way I keep doing this is not working for me or people that I love or in my business. So you have that awareness, you acknowledge the damage that it's doing, and now take action. That's our AAA. Awareness, acknowledgement, action.
Yeah, and also just to be clear, not put it on men like, oh man, my ancestors did this, so I'm carrying that exactly. No, it evolved over the generations, right? Yeah. We referenced it as the evolutionary baton at the Immersion to put it in the content in context. Yeah. And your father took that baton as far as he was going to take it. He passed it to you. You're going to take it as far as you're going to take it. But each time it gets advanced. New things are learned. We're just really looking at, okay, what things are getting passed on that maybe we're done with in this version of this lineage, right? What do we not need there anymore? And that was huge work for men to identify, okay, what are the behaviors, especially this was our king immersion, right? So looking at the context of how we're showing up as a provider, a protector, a procreator, and the shadow challenging ways that shows up. And then seeing like, oh, I don't have to carry that part of the baton forward. And that was a hugely impactful process or processes that we did to then say, okay, what both am I bringing forward? Because there was some good stuff too. And what stuff am I bringing forward that didn't exist in the lineage before? and how am I advancing that evolutionary baton?
Right.
And that was embodied through our process where the men created a soul style and a statement of how they're going to be living that moving forward. That was a really extraordinary process.
Yeah. Not, and thank you for bringing that in, because not everything handed by our ancestors was bad, right? Obviously, there's work ethic that you may have been handed from your father and his father. Great. Okay, cool. Like Michael, you talked about your family not afraid of work. Like you'll break a sweat and get in there and get it done. Cool. Some of us had evolutionary batons that were wrapped in barbed wire when they were handed to us. Okay, cool. Unwrap it. Right. Unwrap it, because you're responsible for what gets handed to the next generation. And some of you may go, well, I don't have any kids. Okay, cool. You're responsible for what's handed to humanity through your interactions with them. Right? Yeah. Is your legacy the lives that were touched by the lives that were touched by the lives that you touched? Or is your legacy a perpetuation of
what not to
distance
do.
and discord and all that horrible stuff that is putting us in a worse place?
Right. Yeah. And if it truly is, end with you and in your lineage and no children, if that's the course for you, then what's the end of the story? You're going to write a beautiful ending to the story, or you're just going to peter out and flame out. So, but I like your version better, because it is about something bigger. And being a father to so much more. It is the men that hold the container for the order in the kingdom. I mean, that's how we talk about it, and that's what's true. So whether the kingdom is your home, whether the kingdom is this country, the world, what humanity, however big you want to go, I think it's all of our responsibilities individually to step up and add our part, because we know and have proven from our weekends that the sum is greater than the parts put together. We'll get that quote right at some point.
Synergy. What is the definition of synergy? Somebody write in and tell us the actual official definition of synergy so we can get it right. In fact, wait a second. I'm just going to look.
The total is greater than the sum of the parts, I think, is how it goes. I think that's
it. Keep talking, Mike. I'm literally.
Well, I mean, talk about creating synergy. This group, there was 18 of us in a home, living together for 4 days, waking up together, working out together, training together, hearing each other, doing breath work together, doing network entrainments together, doing MDS together, breaking out into small groups and being led and facilitated in some of the most deepest healing that you can experience, and being raw and real and vulnerable and transparent, and all the masks off. And as intense and crazy as that sounds, the feedback is we just had our integration call with our Brotherhood group from the Immersion, and every one of them shared that those were the moments that were the most impactful, the most potent, right? It wasn't the good food or the hanging out by the pool, and that stuff happens too, but what's remembered is the transformation, right? It's not information, it's transformation. And hands down, every single man had the most extraordinary transformation. Some of it, as we talked about fatherhood and collectively, some of it was about the desire for family and wanting to be a father, or changing how they were being a father. We really ran the gamut with this king energy, and we'll dive into that a little more, but I feel you have something to share here.
No, I was just laughing that you just pulled gamut into the conversation. Alex will be happy about that. Somehow we have to work succulent in there as well. There's a little inside joke, little word game that we had going. And by the way, synergy is the interaction of two or more agents or forces so that their combined effect is greater than the sum of their individual effects. So the total is greater than the sum of the parts. Oh. That's what we've been trying to say every time we reference synergy.
Well, there was definitely a lot of that. For men out there to maybe give you something to relate to, athletics is the perfect parable to this. It's like, look at being on a team and coming together. And I know we use that reference of together we win, and we get quarterbacked by one of our senior brothers. But, it is being in that we're all doing our part, and we're all putting in a certain amount of energy into the system. But yet what emerges and gets created from that is far greater than any one man could have put in. because men were stretched, right? I mean, we purposely put them in situations that, there's no hiding, frankly.
Yeah.
And, my thing is, like, we only have 4 days together. Like, we need every moment, right?
From emotional processes to physical combatives, there was no hiding.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Russell, to kind of help give maybe some ways for men to connect. And you're always so good at analogies and putting things in a way to really onboard it. Maybe looking at some of the specific men's like transformations and other men can relate to that, that are listening, because we always talk about, as you said before, your work is my work. Anything that comes, and I know as we talk more will come through, anything that wants to be spoken to, because it was outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, the VIP of the immersion was a new man who had never done this kind of work before.
Right.
Had never done this kind of work before. Didn't even know what he was getting himself into. Just knew that he was at a place of pain in his life. He'd been exhibiting these self-sabotaging behaviors, through substances and other things that it's like, this isn't working. I feel empty inside. And he knew that he needed help. He didn't know what it was, so he showed up. And man, did this guy play full out. And come to discover that all of the hedonistic and addictive behaviors that he had displayed in his life, he got from his father, and had been given this curse of, you're just like your father.
Literally has the same name as him, right?
Yeah, like the exact same name. He, like first, middle, last, same name. So he had taken all that on unconsciously, of course. It's not like any of us decide, you know what, I think I'm going to do this. It's unconscious.
But you can't do that in a good way, right?
Right. But I'm talking about with all the negative stuff that we take on.
Sure.
And his transformation was mind-blowing. One, because again, he played full out, bared his soul, and was just ready for change. So, through the weekend, through these processes, he was able to not only take all of those negative behaviors, and his father's passed away. He got to mourn his father's death, which he'd never done. He got to lay all of those bad habits back down at his father's feet and goes, these are not mine. And claim, I am my father's son, and I'm taking all the good and all the gold and all the beauty that was the truth of who my father was. Because guess what? His dad got those negative behaviors somewhere too, and they weren't his. Right. But he was able to embrace the positive qualities that his father embodied and had shown him, and come away as a new definition of himself, come away with a power and strength. I mean, everybody commented on Sunday, it's like, holy shit, dude, your eyes, your face have changed.
Morphing.
Like literally physically changed.
Yep.
His eyes were lit up, and there's this just purity from his soul. And this, if you're walking around with, and, anybody that served in the military probably knows the feelings of walking around with a 50 to 70 pound ruck, 50 to 70 pound backpack. It's miserable. But after a while of doing it, you don't even remember that you're carrying it.
Yep.
So this emotional and spiritual baggage is the same way. You've been in pain for so long, you don't know what it's like to not be in pain. You've been carrying this shit for so long, you don't remember what it's like to put it down. So
or when never had it, never even had that freedom.
Right. So when if your whole life, if you were born here, take this backpack, kid, right out of the gate, you've never had that freedom. So when he was able to put all that baggage down, oh my God, absolutely inspiring. And his work,
literal energetic weight lifted.
Yeah. His work touched every man there. And, it's like that. quote, which I'm going to misquote from Merriam-Webster about your shining bright gives other people permission to do the same thing.
Yep.
Your liberation, your strength and vulnerability gives other people the opportunity to do the same. Other men, you know. So it was powerful work. That was one of my absolute favorite moments.
Yeah, and that was definitely remarked on by pretty much every other man in the Brotherhood because it impacted all of us, myself and yourself included. It was one of those really beautiful healing moments, group healing moments that through vulnerability comes strength and power. It was, yeah. I'll add, just to keep bringing in the work here. There were two men that had similar work, and for those of you out there that were in relationship that had ended or has ended, one was a man that recently divorced, and another man who had been out of a particular relationship for a couple of years now and has never fully completed energetically with it, and how that
hasn't gotten over
shown
it.
up, hasn't gotten over it, and has had a number of relationships since then, and somehow has sabotaged them because he's held on to this energy. So men literally cutting the cord in those relationships and seeing that like rising up of their sovereignty around it and not having that relationship living in them and weighing them down. Again, one a lot fresher, but necessary so he can move forward in his life. Obviously, when there's children involved and there's things that are not complete, it's hard to have that complete separation. But it has to happen energetically first, and then for this other man, who it had just been gotten to the point where it's like, how many more times or years am I gonna be like literally like ball and chain to that relationship and have it affect all my future relationships, and to finally get to that point. And that was really poignant at seeing men come into their sovereignty around cutting those cords. Was very powerful.
Yeah, huge. And I can relate to that hanging on, because I ran that pattern for so long that any relationship that ends, somehow it's my fault. And if you're holding that energy, then there's the desire to hold on, or maybe I can just fix it, or maybe I did something wrong. And this loop will keep playing over and over again. I related in my youth, when I was very young and ridiculously codependent, I got into a relationship with a woman who was clinically diagnosed psychotic, bipolar, manic depressive, and she was a meth dealer. This was a train wreck from the start, but when that ended, it was somehow my fault. I blame myself. I figured I should have done more to fix it. What a disastrous mindset, So
the other side of that, by the way, is those that point the finger and blame the other in the relationship with no responsibility. Right? It's all their fault.
They're the victims, right?
Yeah. So that's a lot of that. We talk about stage 2 of the polarity of this good, bad, right, wrong, and pointing the finger and avoiding and abdicating any kind of ownership or responsibility. So it goes both ways, just to make sure we weave both of those things in there.
And you just said the word ownership. It's like, I'm going to own my part in this, and I'm going to recognize her part in that. She could take ownership of this. And look, it wasn't right. This didn't work. End of story. And so with sovereignty and with strength, you can end it in your mind, in your soul, and the energetic connection. Cut that cord and move on to not only allow yourself a chance at a greater and better relationship, a chance at sacred union, which we talked about a lot, which everybody wants. Most people don't even know they want it, but that,
what it looks like.
or what it looks like. But also to allow that woman, that other person, an opportunity, because if there's still these energetic spider webs tangling you two together, she can't move on, you can't move on. Cut it out. Literally cut it out.
Right. You got to cut the cords.
And with that man that you're referencing, the recognition, as I asked him on the weekend, I said, which is sweeter, sugar or high fructose corn syrup? High fructose corn syrup. ridiculously sweeter, but it's toxic. Sugar is actually, in the right amounts, in the right form, healthy for you. It is a nutrient, right? So the reason I said that is this woman that you were with was high fructose corn syrup. She wasn't capable of sacred union. She wasn't capable of the type of relationship that you wanted, but she got you so sickly sweet that you're still spun out about it.
Right.
And recognizing that by cutting the cord, you are allowing yourself a chance for sacred union. It was a huge awakening for him.
Absolutely. I want to thread on this sacred union piece because not only was this hugely impactful and powerful, it's, I don't think, a phrase that our listeners maybe even are used to hearing. And we talked about just before, seeing relationship, how it's really modeled. So, my wife, Nanilea, came into our container among many skill sets, and we worked with the men physically at these networking trainings, but we talked about secret union and in a beautiful way, use our relationship as an example just to see like how we go about seeing each other. And it was very eye-opening for a lot of the men. It was humorous as well, and we all laughed at ourselves in a lot of ways of the dynamic. But most of us out there are either in some kind of long-term committed relationship, want to be in some kind of long-term committed relationship, or just have challenges in that relationship because that it's the right person, but there's things that could be better, and how to go about seeing each other anew, how to go about championing each other's mission and vision, and having a higher set of values that we come together on and live by and committed to. I think a lot of that does get lost in translation in relationship, and there's a lot of things that are just sort of pedestrian you got to do, but we forget what the deeper meaning of coming together is in this way. Just as this was the king immersion, right? We need the king and the queen to come together because they really preside over the kingdom.
Right. And I loved your vulnerability and transparency, saying, guys, I'm patient zero. like right. I did not have any of this shit figured out. In fact, this has been a work in progress to get to that stage. And I think it's important for men to know this. Neither of us are coming from some guru stance. It's not, we are a work in progress, and relationships, men, are always a work in progress. Always.
You're either green and growing or ripe and rotten.
Yeah. It's never one and done. It's never over. The work must always continue, which is, by the way, not just in creating that sacred union, but I think so many people, they get married and they're like, all right, I'm married, now I can quit trying. No.
It's the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah. Right. You don't quit trying. You don't quit trying to be attractive to your mate. You don't quit trying to develop romance. You don't quit trying to court them. That's what keeps the relationship alive and fresh. Right. And, when you just stop and take it for granted, it's rotten and it's dying.
Which is why our divorce rate is over 50%. I think in California, it's over 70, something like that. You guys lead the way in a lot of things.
None of them good.
Used to be.
And by the way, let's just clarify here, mister, that I am a Texan who moved to California, moved to Los Angeles. Now, everybody right now is going, why the hell would you do that? It was 2007. It was 2007. It was different, right? And you were a California, where you're originally a New Yorker, but you'd been living in California and you moved to Texas. Yeah. So, and I love now that you're there, you're like, ooh, gross, a California license plate. What a loser.
It's fine to move here. Just don't bring your politics. That is really the bottom line.
Yeah, so. Amen.
But yeah, our divorce rate is ridiculously high because people don't treat marriage as a covenant and an agreement and based on it. It becomes more ceremonial than really a true rite of passage. And that's one of the things we are focused on with men's work, is bringing the rite of passage of a man being a man. What we have, the feedback we've heard pretty much 100% of the time is no one showed me what this was. And in fact, the ones that showed me were fucked up. And I didn't learn the right things. And we're just trying to get to you before you make those same pitfalls and mistakes that both we've made and through the men we've coached made, so you can get that wisdom now and come from that new floor that is far beyond what the generation before was able to accomplish.
Yeah, one of the things that your wife, Nani Leia, said, by the way, guys, if you are in a relationship or you know a woman that is seeking personal growth and development, definitely check out her stuff. And Michael, perhaps you
Yeah,
can
we'll put it in
tell
the show notes, her community, the Wild Rose community, and
yeah,
her website and
yeah,
whatnot.
powerful group. But one of the things I loved that she said is that relationships are meant to be both a crucible and a sanctuary. Crucible, this is where you're mixing the chemicals and you're getting the reaction, sometimes volatile, but like this is the lab. This is where we do our work, right? This is where we hold each other to a higher standard. This is where we call each other out on our bullshit from a loving place. And this is the sanctuary where not only all of you is welcome here, right? Because we all have our shortcomings. Now, this doesn't mean you take a dump with the bathroom door open. Like, keep some level of intimacy, guys, right?
Hopefully beyond that.
Yeah. But that sanctuary, to me, it's not just knowing that all of you is welcome here, but seeing each other at your highest, right? Like I want a woman that sees me as a warrior king, that calls me to that higher standard. So I want to be a better man, and I want to do the same thing for her. And knowing that we're not going to maintain that standard all the time, we're going to fall, we're going to stumble, and when we do, that person is still there. That's sanctuary.
Yeah, beautifully said. Agreed. Crucible. Sometimes it's volatile. Sometimes it's mixes together well. It is our place to do our work. It is our most sacred place to do our work and to grow. And on the sanctuary part, and this may come off a little new agey, says my time in California, I guess. But for the masculine, it is that uh, place to go to be received by the feminine heart and to be embraced by that and to be able to, as strong as you are as a man, be able to be held in that pure divine mother energy and have a place to go. That is one of the most sacred things, in my opinion, in a relationship to have. And that takes both that crucible and that sanctuary to exist that way. So there was a lot of healing done for this over this last weekend.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
I want, oh, go ahead. But
yeah,
I have
I was
one
gonna
more
say,
I'd like to bring up.
yeah, please. I was gonna say, let's talk about what else happened on the weekend.
Yeah. I saw some men, a couple men. I'm thinking in particular that really stepped into his new vision and new mission for his life. A corporate man who basically was one track for so long and was liberated from that and was kind of wondering what's next. Young guy, uh, world in front of him, super wicked smart, can do anything he wants. And that thing of like, now you've been liberated and okay, everything is possible. What do I really want here? And not even know where to ask that question and coming out the other side of that. I'll let you jump in. I know you want to jump in
Well,
here.
I just want to put a pin in it. You're saying he was liberated from that. Guys who are listening, he got fired. And we say liberated because he put his heart and soul into this job and it was literally draining his soul. This
right.
job was taking from him, even
For
though
almost a decade.
he was being paid well, he was becoming miserable in it. But his identity was so tied to it, he didn't know how to leave the sinking ship. So when they set him up because he was becoming so successful, so powerful, and so vocal about maintaining his standards and boundaries and integrity, when the company didn't,
right.
they
Threw him under the bus.
created a scenario, threw him under the bus, and fired him. He was liberated. The video he shared with us in his bonfire, the day he got fired, he was giggling like a school child. He was so happy because now he was free. So I just wanted to speak to what we mean by liberated from that. He got fired, but it's not a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. In fact, remember, everything in your life is happening for you, not to you.
But one of the challenges of something like that is then, like, what do I do next?
Right.
And, you can engage in all the behaviors of indulgence and freedom and kind of wanting to do whatever. But then it's like, okay, then
To a point.
to a point. And then
Yeah.
it's like my purpose as a man needs to come in, right? Otherwise I am dying even more of a slow death inside my soul. So to see a man like that, and there was other men too, that the clarity of the mission, and again, for some men, it was around their career and their job. For a number of men, it was around being a father. A man announced that him and his wife are now pregnant. Other men wanting that in their life and taking steps towards that, whether they're in a current relationship, wanting the relationship so they can be a father. That was another huge thing of men. And again, I know it, as men healed that father wound and came into wholeness there, then they're like, oh, I get a chance to do this now. I think for some men, it's like, well, I'm not going to continue along that fucking curse. I'm not going to keep doing the same thing. But when there's actually healing there, then I think it is our natural state. We said one of the P's of masculinity is procreation. So it is our innate desire to further that along. It's not for everyone, absolutely, but there is an innate desire for that. And we saw that come alive. Curious your thoughts on those.
Well, I'm one of the ones that's never been an innate desire. And part of it was because of that childhood wound. You know, it's like, I don't want to, do to another child what was done to me. And don't get me wrong, I didn't have a horrible childhood. Like there were some good moments, and I love both of my parents. And there were some things that were fucked up. But that desire to have children was never really just burning in me. But yeah, seeing a lot of guys answer that call, like an inordinate amount of the men at the immersion either have or are answering that call or requesting that call to become a father. So and good, because we need more awakened warriors in the world, right? So if guys like this are going to procreate, good. Thank God. Right. And we can put on our tinfoil hats and talk about the agenda that wants us to not procreate and wants to eliminate most of humanity and wants only the bad guys to procreate. A little more than
not want us to. Basically, chemically castrating us in the environmental toxin. But we digress.
Yeah. So if the way to combat that is to give birth to the next generation of awakened warriors, good.
And that's what I really saw firsthand this last weekend, is that we look at the generation before these men, their fathers, and looking at this future generation coming after them, and the exponential difference between one and the other. And the thing in the middle is this man having this process, experience, awakening, whatever you want to call it, that says, enough of this. I'm claiming something new, following through with it, and embodying that, and then literally rewriting the epigenetic code in their DNA to then bring his lineage forward and legacy forward. No small feat.
Right. And you know what's fascinating? We're going off the deep end a little bit, but when you talk about not only epigenetics but quantum physics, right? And you talk about the field of quantum possibilities, that time isn't linear, and there are multiple planes of reality. Let's just, even if you don't believe this, guys, entertain it for a second. That the version of Michael Diamond who is an awakening warrior who is doing men's work, and the version of Michael Diamond who is a drug addict dying in an alley, and everything in between, are all coexisting. And which one you experience is which one you put your attention into. That's kind of a glimpse into the field of quantum possibilities. And by doing this work, you choose which version of you will see the light, which version of you will come into form, will come into manifestation. What's crazy about this is it's not just about you. These men created a new quantum possibility, a new quantum reality for their entire lineage, for their family line, right? The family line could have been cursed and carrying this baggage for how many generations because of the work that you're willing to do, because of your courage, your vulnerability, your transparency, and say, enough. It ran in my family until it ran into me. I am the chain breaker. I am the change maker. I am the one who will set a new course and do that work. Have the courage to do that work. Like, you can literally change your entire family lineage for generations to come. That's mind blowing.
That might be a good place to leave it for today. But as we want to do, always bring in a couple actionables. Usually we weave them throughout, but just to fully wrap up here, I think changing quantum possibilities might need a little how-to manual here. So.
Yeah, right. So for that how-to manual, I would say our AAA awareness. Be aware, like take an inventory, guys, of what's not working in your life, what's not working within you. Where do you keep butting your head against the wall? Where do you keep sabotaging? Where do you keep sabotaging your relationships, your work, whatever else? Take an inventory of that, be aware, and then acknowledge the pain that it has caused you and others. Then the next step is action. Be willing to do something about it. And if you don't know what to do about it, reach out to us. We can give you some guidance. Even if it's not with us, we can kind of point you in the right direction.
Yeah. I'll just throw it on.
Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
No,
I'll just throw it on the action part for a moment. This is something a couple of the men reported after the immersion. That is something you can do, because we mentioned earlier that we're not just cursing or getting rid of the stuff that wasn't good. We acknowledge that, man, there were things that were really good. You talked about your childhood a little bit, and there were positive qualities passed down. And I would encourage you men out there is pick up the phone. If your parents are alive, call them. And you know what? Whether it was perfect or not, and whatever your perception of it, thank them for the things they did do. It's amazing the energetic shift that occurs inside of you when you give that blessing, which is a part of our pillars of kingship. And we always talk about you want more of something, give the thing that you're feeling is lacking in your life. So you lacking that acknowledgement and love, give it. You'll be amazed how much it comes back to you, especially with parents or family members. And if they're not alive, you can still do it. As we proved many times this last weekend, it doesn't matter what dimension they're in or beyond the veil or dead or alive, that we can literally communicate with that energetic, and it still is equal. It's as profound, if not more sometimes, actually. So that would be my action step here. The actionable is reach out. Maybe it's just one thing that, and you know what, just think about the impact that can make in their life. And if that's the way to not make it about you, and just give that gift freely, give that blessing freely, whether it's the cashier at the store, whether it's your mother for how she raised you, father, sibling, anyone in your life where it feels like, man, I'm still holding on to something there. Take that step. Amazing what can happen with that.
Thank you for bringing that in. That's powerful. And yeah, there were men who did that after the weekend, that acknowledged and appreciated their parents for all the good that they did, and even apologized for, what a problem child they may have been as a child and their shortcomings. And there were parents that, one guy said his parents sat in the car and cried for half an hour before they went to the baseball game or something. It's like it's amazing, the effect that can have.
One man just gave his son some acknowledgement, and he turned and said to him, "That means more to me than you know."
Yeah.
As a father, I'll tell you that that makes it worth it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So
the other actionable that I was going to mention, Michael, we talked about it before, is men, find your bonfire. We talk about, we've got our chat group that we call it the bonfire, because this is where we can check in every day. And that saying, that term came from, the further you get away from the campfire, the colder and darker it gets, the bigger the shadows become. Don't try to be the lone wolf. We've talked about this in the 5 Pains of Men. Lone wolf dies fast, and if it's where you can do this work, where you can be seen, where you can be vulnerable. If you have a circle of men that you can do that with, a circle of friends where you can just go, hey man, my heart is hurting, do that. And if you don't have that circle, create one or reach out to us again. It is really important for men to have that bonfire that they can go to warm up. And shake off the cold. So I would say that's a other important actionable. If you,
it's probably going to be one every actionable on every podcast.
Yeah, get
it's that important.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And if what we spoke about the immersion, and by the way, we barely scratched the surface of everything that happened at this immersion. If that appeals to you or intrigues you, again, reach out to us. These fill up fast, and the next one's coming up in about 3 months. So the sooner you reach out, the better. If you have any questions or interest, do that. But, I think it was like a Betty Ford or AA commercial that said, if you don't get help here, please get help somewhere. But it's kind of true, right? Like, stop trying to do this all by yourself. Stop carrying all this baggage. Like reach out to somebody, because
that's the hardest part, but it's the most important part.
We're tribal animals. We're tribal animals, guys.
Yeah.
We are pack animals. We are a tribal society, so make your tribe. If you can, choose between the broken, dysfunctional, energy neutral, enslaved tribe that society is becoming, or you can choose the tribe of the awakened warriors. They're going to hold you to your highest potential and help you become everything you're meant to be. I would go with the second, just me.
Yeah. Well, on that note, sending this blessing of the immersion.
Yeah.
And all the healing that was done out to you men out there. See you on the next one.
Oh.
Aho.